Welcome to another episode of the Laura the Library Lady podcast, a production of the Massillon Public Library.
Hi, it's Laura the Library Lady here at the Massillon Public Library in our studio high atop the library downtown. And with me today are two gentlemen who are announcers for the Massillon Tigers, David Stuck, who's the football announcer, and Bob Wenzel, who's the Massillon Tiger Swing Band announcer. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I'm so glad to have you here. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Tiger football and Tiger sports and just Massillon stuff in general. But I do want to mention, David, you were on the soccer team at Massillon because you played with my son.
I was.
You are now a soccer coach. You want to tell us how you got where you are today?
Yeah. While I was at Massillon teaching for my first 2 years of teaching, I should include that I became a teacher later in my career. I decided to change my career in my mid-30s and become a teacher. So
very interesting.
The head soccer coach at Massillon found out that I used to play, so I started out being a volunteer assistant for the high school team. I would coach some of the spring middle school teams. And then on opening at Fairless, came open for the head soccer coach, and Coach Mail at Massillon said, you should apply for it, you should go for it, it'd be good. Smaller district to start coaching in as your head coach, and that's how I got into it.
All right, so from soccer to announcing football, how did you get there?
The guy sitting next to me, Bob here, had been, 3 years since Walt had retired?
When I approached you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about...
I didn't even ask him.
Yeah, he didn't ask me.
Well, we're talking about Walt Bronczek.
He is shy by nature.
David is shy.
David is shy by nature until you get to know him.
True.
And I was afraid that if I asked him, he might have said no.
Okay.
So they were looking for somebody to replace Walt. And they actually asked me if I could do both.
Oh, my goodness, the band and the
football. And I said no. It's all I can do, just get the band things,
Yeah, but Bob, you've been with the band for how many years did you say?
This will be 48 coming up.
Oh, my goodness.
My 48. I started in 77 under Mr. Billingsley.
Okay. And you told me, Bob, that Walt Bronczek had 42 years in as the announcer?
He had 42 when he stepped away after the 2019 season.
Okay. So then that's when you asked David.
Well, Mr. Goff, who runs the, Dave Goff, runs the press box, and he's done that for a long time.
It's been quite a while.
But they were trying to find a replacement for Walt, and Walt was kind of, a legend.
Sure.
A lot of people, recognized his voice and his technique and everything.
And I think Walt started out when he was about 18. Is that correct?
No.
No?
He may not appreciate us discussing age.
I thought he was quite youthful.
Well, I thought he was my age, and it turned out that he is a little older.
Oh.
So we'll just
he's
go with
retired
that.
now.
And he is now retired from everything,
announcing.
yes.
But everybody loved him, and he did a great job.
But I thought of David because he comes from a football family.
Okay.
He goes to all the games, and he was on the Alumni Association with me, and when he would speak, I'm sitting there going, he's got the voice.
Oh, very good.
It's a nice middle-of-the-road voice. It's not too low. It's not too high. Sometimes with electronics, high and low voices don't come across well.
Right.
But he has a very nice baritone, I think.
Well, thank you.
And I just turned his name in without asking.
And then I got a call from Dave Goff and asked me to come up to the press booth if I'd be interested. And for about a whole season there, it was the 2020 COVID season, I would go up and I would kind of watch the replacement announcers they had in. And I'd do a couple reads here and there, try to get things down, because I had never done anything like that before.
Really?
And then he said, hey, you make the grade, and do you want to become the permanent announcer for right now? And it's been 3 years.
Fun. Well, can you give me your football voice? How do you start out with the...
How do I start out?
Yeah.
I kind of just use my teacher voice.
Okay.
So you got to talk real clear, like you're giving a lecture. Kind of like that. You don't want, as Bob said, not too high, not too low, and you have to be even keel. Even though you love Massillon football, you cannot get excited.
You can't
So-
scream goal.
No, you can't. And that's what a lot of, my friends and other fans go, why don't you get more excited up there? And I said, now lad, we want to be class. We want to be consistent. You want to stay even keel.
Right. Yeah, you don't want other teams to come to Massillon and go, oh boy, those announcers really
No.
just are not fair.
They're so, and everybody knows, so we won't name them, but you go to certain stadiums when we play, and they're so home-sided with their announcing, and every time their team scores a touchdown, or whatever, it's huge, and then they'll, perhaps if they're winning, they'll say, so-and-so 27, and the Tigers 6. Something like that. And we don't, at least that's not what a Massillon tradition is. It's very much, if they score, you're just as into the visitor scoring. I mean, of course, we don't want them to, but you have to.
But yeah, professionally.
Yes.
Professionally, yeah.
You want to maintain fairness. And these are students who are playing. So, of course,
Correct.
that's the only, right thing to do. All right. So, Bob, you're the voice of the Massillon Tiger Swing Band. How did you get that job?
Okay. Fred Behrens was the announcer back in the mid-'70s.
I remember
He used
him.
to sing the national anthem.
He did,
And he
yeah.
would sing the alma mater as well as announce the band. And then in 1970, well, it was about maybe 1976, he didn't want to go to the away events. So they would go to away events and have just a parent or somebody up there. And so my sister's senior year, 1977, Mr. Billingsley was the director. And they said my sister said, for 1 year, will you do the fill-in? And I said, sure. For 1 year, I can do 1 year. I'm a choir person. I was never in the band.
Okay.
My entire family was in the band. I'm the only one was at least instrument playing. Not all of them were in the band, but at least all of them played instruments at some point. I'm the only one. I was in the choir under Mr. Grace at Washington High, class of 74.
You said it.
So I said, for 1 year, I can do that. So the very first day, it's a Sunday morning, and the phone rings, and it's my sister. She says, you got to come to the stadium. Mr. Behrens can't make it, and we're playing at Cleveland Stadium for the Browns.
What?
And I'm like, that's exactly what I said. What? So I threw on some clothes and ran over to the stadium, and my first announcing for the band was in front of 72,000 people at Municipal Stadium for the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. So I got broke in fast and very quick.
Out of the frying pan into
Out
the
of the
fire.
frying pan into the fire.
That's the way I like it, yeah.
So never had a microphone in my hand, nothing. And the Cleveland Browns guy was right next to me. And I did the initial announcing of the band, and I knew to go slow and steady. And he said into my ear, faster. And I said, faster? And it went all over the stadium. Faster? So that was my first learn to turn the mic off in between. So at the end of that 1977 season, I figured I was done, but Mr. Billingsley came up and said, you're coming back next year, aren't you? And I was like, sure, okay. Yeah, I can do that. And
the rest
so
is
far,
history.
they haven't invited me not to come back. So
Now
I just keep coming back.
Tell us, what was Mr. Billingsley's first name? Do you remember?
Jim Billingsley.
Jim Billingsley, okay.
Yeah. And he was the band director from 70 to 81. And then Rick Tissot took over in 82 to 90. Clarence Crum 1 year in 1990. Chris Smith came in 91 to 99. And then we had Christy Schaefer for 2 years in 2000, 2001. Chris Smith came back for 2 years in 02, 03. And then we had Dana Heyer, 04, 05. And believe it or not, Jason Neal, the current director, came in 06. And now this will be his 19th year.
I did not realize that.
No.
19 already.
Wow.
Second only to Dyke Ford. He's already passed him in half times
Oh, my.
because of the playoffs. Same thing with Coach Moore. Because of the playoff games, Coach Moore was able to pass Paul Brown's winning mark sooner than the 9 years.
Okay.
Same thing with Jason Neal. He has now had more halftime shows It's like 200. I think it's like 220 half times,
Oh my
something
goodness.
like that.
Wow.
And of course at Massillon, every home halftime is a new show.
Yeah. Impressive. Oh my goodness. And his assistant director is Jen Smith-Heisler.
Correct, Jen.
And I'm hoping to have her on the show at some point. Her grandpa was drum major
Right.
way back when.
He was the first drum major under the swing era,
Yeah.
Clayton Bergdorf.
Right.
And then he came back, and then he was the majorette instructor for almost 30 years.
I didn't know that.
He did the drum major and majorettes and Obi till the late 60s, maybe in
Okay.
about 1968 or so.
Yeah.
And that's when Shirley McCulley, also an alumni, Shirley Steyer McCulley, class of 61, took over
Okay.
in the late 60s. And she was the majorette instructor for a long time.
Wow.
So
Well, you're a wealth of information about everything. I guess, people out there in Massillon ought to join the Alumni Association.
They should.
If they're eligible for the WHS Alumni Association. Sounds like some good people are in that if David and Bob are in it.
It is. It's a great association, and we're all about trying to give back and help the students, current programs, and students once they graduate. So,
Great.
yeah, it's more than just helping with class reunions.
yeah.
That's our prime, keeping alumni connected with their classes.
Mm-hmm.
But we also we help with band alumni, we help with choir alumni, with the Messiah, anything that can come up that we can tie into. And then once in a while, a special project came up. We just helped the baseball team redo their dugouts
Oh, okay.
at the Ducky Schroeder Field, when we can help the current students, But I've been off of it now for a couple of years.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, how did you get out of it? My goodness. How did they let you go?
The bylaws. Thank
okay.
heavens for the bylaws. They only allow you to be on 9 years,
Okay.
three-year terms, and then you have to step away.
And then can you go back later?
You can after a 1 year, and I did that. I did 2 9-year terms. There's just a couple of us who have ever done 18 years with that. So
Is that like double dipping or what?
no, it's. I think it's burning out. It's
But you're still a member, and anybody can join.
I'm still
to
a member.
support the
Anybody,
Alumni Association.
and you don't have to be a graduate.
Nope.
Oh.
You can be a friend of Washington High School.
Well, I guess that's true because I didn't graduate from Washington High School,
and be a
but
friend
my
of
kids
WHS.
did.
Yeah,
Nice, and my dad.
A lot of parents. And I've noticed that over the years, sometimes even with the teachers, a lot of the teachers who haven't graduated from Washington High School get more into it than the ones who did.
Yeah, they get more active into it.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe because they were adults when they.
Oh, they
We're
get
so
that tiger
involved.
fever. Walt Bronzik, he graduated from Benedictine up in Cleveland.
Okay.
You never would have known that from his
No.
loyalty.
Right.
Karen Bushman, the choir director in the 80s, she was really good. Not a graduate, and really into it. I mean, I could go on and on with all the
Yeah.
teachers who really
Yeah.
are,
Are tigers, but
are
are-
tigers, in heart
They're-
and soul, but not by diploma.
Yeah. Well, David, I know, we talked about you being in the class of '06, and you said your mom, and I think, did your dad go to Washington as well?
Yeah, I'm third generation. So,
Ooh, well, tell us all their names and what you know,
well, my grandfather, Roger Hodgson, he was a bass drummer in the band class of 43. My grandmother, Beverly Hodgson, she was a majorette. Back when majorette batons were like the drum majors, where it just had one side with one big ball on it.
Oh, my. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it was. My dad, class of 71, he was a snare player in the
Tell
swing
us
band.
his name.
Leslie Stuck.
I knew that, but I wanted to make sure everybody out
My
there
mother,
would know.
Tanya Stuck, was a majorette in the band as well. So, and I, of course, was in the band. I was an alto saxophone player.
Great.
So I wasn't in band my freshman year because obviously I played soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And, the rule was you had to be at every practice. And I went to the director at the time, Mr. Smith, Chris Smith, and I said, I really want to be in the band. And they made a deal with me. They said, all right, you can be in the band and you can miss practice all week for soccer. But on Friday, you have to challenge for your spot every week.
Oh,
So that's what I did for the next 3 years. So I would challenge every Friday, and I would get my spot so I could be in the halftime show and not have to stand on the sideline.
wow. That's
So,
pretty impressive.
It didn't make the
That
kids
is impressive.
very happy that we're at practice all week, but I did challenge them to win
They
my
had their
spot.
chance, yeah.
So I would get the routine and I would march it out in my backyard and practice that way.
Now, did your mom help you? Because I know that your mom used to help
Yes, she
your
did.
uncle. No, Dale Mauger.
Dale Maurer?
Dale Maurer. He was in the Lions show all the time.
He was in the Lions show. And yes, she would help him with his dance routines because she used to be the choreographer for the Queen pageant.
I knew she did stuff
for the
like
Pro
that.
Football Hall of Fame. She used to
Wow.
work for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the festival department, which
Okay.
is actually under the Canton Chamber of Commerce, not the actual Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, my goodness.
It's
Complicated.
I know it is complicated. She did that for about 30 years. She was one of the festival directors over there. She did mostly the indoor shows, like
Okay.
the Enshrinees dinner and all that kind of stuff.
But very talented, obviously, with the choreography and being a majorette and all that.
And she was
stuff.
majorette advisor at Dalton and Tuslaw for a number of years.
You know, David, as you're telling this, she sounds like a candidate to be a local distinguished citizen
You
of
know,
Washington High School. This is how we find these things out.
right? Just
You
by
know,
word of
we
mouth,
need-
right?
I mean, when you dedicate stuff like that in your community for all those years, yeah, I think we need to write her up for
Well,
put,
yeah.
her,
Okay.
put her name down in the
And both David's parents used to
Yeah.
help out with soccer boosters and all
Yeah,
that
my mom
stuff.
was soccer booster president. My dad helped out. He was on the OB balloon crew when I was in
Oh, neat.
high school. He actually did that a couple years after I was out of high school. And lo and behold, he ended up doing it with my future and father-in-law.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's cute.
Mike Dominic. So,
Oh, wait, Mike Dominic is your father-in-law?
yes, I'm married to his daughter, Stephanie Dominic.
See, everybody knows everybody. Everybody in Massillon is so nice.
It is.
And you can't talk about anybody bad.
No,
because
because
it's,
you're
their
gonna know
cousin
'em.
or their
Yep.
father-in-law or whatever.
And that was another hook. I mean, not only is he from a Tiger family, but he married into a huge Tiger family.
True.
He's
Yes.
Bill Oliver would be his grandfather-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and Bill is an icon, a
He
local
was
icon.
a wealth
Ah.
of knowledge on local history and Massillon history.
Well, I think he used to come into the library every day, if I remember
He
him
did.
correctly. Yes.
He was quite into library and books.
Yeah.
So he always had a story when we go over to Stephanie's grandparents' house.
Cool. Who knew the Dominics, the Olivers, the Stucks, they're all related now. Oh, my goodness. Well, we were talking earlier about the Wenzel family because, Bob, your mom, Esther Wenzel, who you said is still with us, and she's 96 years old. She used to be the milk token lady at St. Mary's when I went there.
Yeah, she was in George Bird's band back
she
in the
was.
1940s. Yep, she was a 3-star band. Back then, the school was only a 3-year school, so it was 3 years.
Oh, right.
It didn't turn to a 4-year school till 1991. So, but yeah, 3-star bandsman. And then she went on with George Bird to the musical majorettes that played for the Cleveland Browns in the late 40s.
Oh my
They had
gosh.
an all-girl marching band. Never been anything like it before or since.
Yeah, back in
They
the
were
40s.
dressed like majorettes, but they played their horns, and they marched for the Cleveland Browns. And her scrapbook from that era is actually in the library at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, my.
Neat.
So, yeah.
What
she
year
kept
was
a
George
scrapbook.
Redbird? When did he stop with the swing band?
The fall of 45 was his last
So then
football season.
My grandmother and grandfather were in
Right,
band
they were
when he
both-
was there. I thought they were, but I couldn't remember when he stopped.
So you come to the library and you can confirm that with a living archive here named Bob Wenzel.
So, yeah, he was 1938 to 1945. And, of course, he's the one that put us on the map. Mm-hmm. He's the one that invented measured step marching, which is, until he came along, bands just marched up and across the field. A lot of times their shows were just rah-rah at halftime. They would make their school letter and march around and play marches like John Philip Sousa's or school songs, but there was no real theme. George Bird came along in 1938, had measured step marching. He had music cued movement. The band would dance, not just march. They would dance, and this is never was done before. And he turned the halftime of a football game into a theater, into a showtime, and had the majorettes. He had a student dressed in a live tiger skin, a real tiger skin. The name Obi came from back in 1927. The mascot for Washington High had been a tiger since some of the earlier days, but there wasn't an actual. They had like a paper mache tiger on the sidelines, and they actually had a contest. And some Viola Black from class of 27 named it Obi, orange and black. And
her last name was Black?
Yeah, and her
That's
last
cute.
Viola Black. Yeah. And so that carried on through. But to have a live tiger, and he did antics, pranced around to the music,
Right.
danced with the majorettes, the drum major. I mean, it was just a show. And so the measured step marching, in 1941, we went and played at the halftime of Wisconsin versus Ohio State in Columbus. We represented the University of Wisconsin band. Their band could not travel. It was 1941, and gas was already being rationed.
Okay.
Even though we weren't actively in the war yet, we were getting, things were being rationed. So Wisconsin band couldn't go. So originally they had asked Paul Brown if the Massillon band could play, and the athletic director at Ohio State said, "There's no way a high school band is marching at an Ohio State game."
Oh,
So Paul Brown said no. Well, these guys called Harry Studrer, who was the head coach of Wisconsin, who was also from Massillon.
yeah.
And he said, sure. So they came in through the back way. So that was, I think his name was Tink Ulrich.
I think you're right. It was Tink Ulrich.
Tink Ulrich. Okay, I'm not sure of the name, but that was the guy who arranged it through the back door.
Uh-huh.
So the University of Wisconsin said Massillon Band is representing us that day. Well, that day, November of 1941, our band was so sharp. And literally, I mean, the story goes, we showed up the Ohio State band
Oh, wow.
because of our marching techniques, our measured steps and everything, our dance steps. The very next fall, Ohio State sent a young man to be a student teacher to Massillon, all the way from Columbus to Massillon, to learn how to do that.
To steal all of our ideas.
Yeah, and he did. And in the fall of 1946, the Ohio State marching band introduced measured step marching to the collegiate world. So now they were given
wow.
credit for a long time of being the inventors of the measured step, because they also had a measured knee lift, which we did not. Now we measured our steps between the yard lines, 6 or 8, depending on the tempo, which they copied. But then they introduced how high you could lift your knee. So we gave them credit for that. But in later years, they did acknowledge that the Massillon Band was where they got it.
So they finally let us have our due.
Yeah, about 25 years ago, they came out with a newsletter report within
Did we get reparations?
No.
So, that sounds really hard. I was in the band in like junior high, but not marching band. I had enough trouble playing my instrument, let alone walking and measuring my step. And how would you...
It just becomes second nature. You learn point your toe, knee comes up to a certain height.
Okay, you make it sound so easy. You must be coordinated.
You practice it enough, it gets pretty easy once you do it for so long.
So how did you get interested in playing soccer and not football?
Well, at the time, my parents, they let me try every sport. I did Little League.
great,
I
yeah.
did soccer. I did some football camps. But I was always pretty skinny. I was tall and skinny. And at the time, football was geared more towards muscle. Now it is slimmed down. It's really about speed, especially at the college level. Back then, we were still, Division I, and everybody was just really huge.
Beefy.
And they always, at the camps, always put me a wide receiver. And, the rules have changed now where it's more protective of receivers and quarterbacks. Well, back then, a free safety could come across the middle and take your head off while you're midair trying to catch the ball. So it didn't
They
work
said you were
out
too
for me.
light. And...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I had played soccer since I was 4, and I was pretty good at it, and that's what I took to. So
And I teased him about his nickname. His nickname was Rojo,
it was Rojo.
because that means red, and he has red hair. So
Coach Volpe, a longtime Massillon soccer coach who actually started Massillon soccer way back in, I believe, 1993.
Tony
So-
Volpe.
And he's a wrestler by trade. So we were always very well conditioned. We might not have been the most talented team, but we were conditioned, and we were going to be scrappy out there on the field. So yeah, and also I was I was able to kick with my left foot. And for whatever reason, a lot of soccer players, you're either right or left foot dominant. And I spent one whole summer just practicing with my left foot so I could be able to
fool the other guys.
To kick with it. And not a lot of people were left-footed, so I was able to get in that way since I always played midfield.
Are you left-handed?
I am left-handed.
But
I golf and bat right-handed.
Okay.
Because when I was in Little League, my coach, for whatever reason, was persistent that I was going to throw with my right hand.
Well, at least you didn't live in the era where they tied your left hand behind your back, right?
That did happen to my great-grandmother Evans at St. Mary's.
I know some older generations, they did that.
They tied her left hand behind her back and made her write with her right, and she was able then to write with both hands.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, she benefited from that then.
So then my grandfather went to our baseball coach in Little League and said, he's left-handed. And so then I was able to throw with my left hand much easier, but I still batted right-handed.
Okay. Hey, everybody's different. Some people are more ambidextrous than others. But
it just worked out that way. So soccer came easy to me, and I kind of had the right build for it, and I enjoyed it.
So, Coach Volpe, if you're listening, here's Rojo talking to you. Thanks for giving him his nickname and conditioning him well.
He did condition us well. And I believe Coach Volpe is at Central. He's the head girls coach out at Central. Okay. He's been for a number of years.
I think I went to school with his sister. Everybody's connected. We said that.
We're all connected.
Yeah. So, Bob, are you going to stick with this for the next 48 years, or what are you thinking?
Oh my goodness. Well, I told Mr. Neal that, and I told him a couple of years ago, I'm 68, and it's a year-by-year thing. I would really like to hit 50 in 3 more years. Mm-hmm. But, it gets awful cold in November. And some of those stadiums like Warren Harding, that's a long way to walk up them steps to get all the – not everybody has elevators. And even our own stadium's a long way to get up there.
I even get winded going up to the press box.
You do not.
I do. It's a hike.
And a lot of times Mr. Billingsley always had me walk in with him in case he forgot something. When the band marches into the stadium or whatever, I'm usually with the director because if they forget something, Bob, I forgot this on the bus. And, back then I was 20, 21 years old. No problem, So I still walk in with Mr. Neal, but a lot of times I'm walking in with Mr. Neal, but I end up clearing the back. By the time the band is marching into the stadium, and I'm kind of in the back somewhere.
So you're not the minion anymore.
No. Sometimes, like if there's a pothole or if there's a curb, they'll ask me to stand and make sure nobody.
Guard it, kind of.
Right, because we have this thing of making our entrance into a stadium, making sure everybody knows Massillon is here. And Mr. Neal is really good at judging exactly where roll-off should hit and where Tiger Egg should start when we're marching into a visitor's stadium.
Wow.
And sometimes the kids will be playing, and if there's a curb that they have to step or a pothole, I get to stand there and make sure they don't trip.
That's awesome.
So there is more than just being an announcer.
It's not all starlight and
it's not all glamorous and every once in a while, and I get extra duties here and there. But I've done that same thing then for every director. I've gone at the beginning of the band, and if they forget something, hey, make sure somebody's got the ladder.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll turn around and go back and make sure somebody's bringing the ladder or bringing something. So works out that way.
Always helpful.
But to answer your question, in 2 more years it'll be 50, and I'll be 70, and I'm thinking, not officially, but that would be a good cutoff time.
You might want to go out with a bang and the golden anniversary.
Let somebody else enjoy this.
Well, see, now David will have to recruit someone to
there
replace
you go.
you.
Yeah.
I could try. I have a few people that could maybe do it.
I don't know if they could do it like Bob does.
No.
Well.
They'd have big shoes to fill. Well, any funny stories about anything that happens in the press box you want to share? Because I think there probably are some.
Oh, there are some.
If you're able to repeat them on the air.
A couple are, the way the process works is Dave Goff, who's as Bob said, our production guy up there. He runs the show. What Dave says goes. he will give me the rosters and the officials' names a week before the game. And then it's my job. I have to contact the athletic director or the media person at the opposing school. And I go through and I highlight names that, I might have trouble with and get the right pronunciation. And that doesn't always go smoothly. Most of the time they get back to me. It's very well done. For like the Valdosta game, I was on the phone with their media person. He's driving in his car going over the names with me because that was a big game last year and I wanted to get it all right. And there's some Southern names in there. And so that was a little different. And I'm trying to write them down as he's talking and driving. But some schools don't always get back to you and you're going in blind, or they're not as organized as Massillon, and sometimes with out-of-state teams or a couple Canadian teams, the rosters you get are not correct. The players don't match the numbers, and you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants there.
Oh, my.
And, it's live. We have a schedule in the press box. You want to time it down to the minute. It's all timed. I time out my reads beforehand, clock them, and it's live and stuff changes, so we have to move things around. And so, yeah, it's a lot of go with the flow, and you just got to be ready to do it professionally. But with our mics, my mic, I have to press a button to talk. So I'm always conscious of making sure I'm not on a hot mic. But there's a lot of commotion behind you, and sometimes like my spotter or other people might still be talking, and then you can hear them over the air once in a while as I'm shutting off the mic.
A little voice in the background.
Yes. So, because they're getting all excited about the game, and I have to stay even-keeled. So, like St. Ed's, when we came back to beat them, I'm trying to stay even-keel, not even though I'm super excited that we just scored and we're going to win. And then
but you're neutral.
I'm neutral, and then I've got everybody behind me, hurrahing and high-fiving, and I'm sitting there going, okay, hopefully this doesn't catch anything on the mic, and just keep your composure. So it's a lot of just go with your flow, which is fun, but can be chaotic at times.
It sounds hectic.
To stay professional. Because you got me, you've got David Wagner, who does all our scoreboard and all that. He's to my right, so he's down there on his headset talking to his guys that are doing the cameras for Massillon Cable. Then next to me, you have my spotter who's calling out numbers, who tackled who threw the ball to who. Next to him, you have the stats spotter. He calls out the numbers to the stat guy who's next to him, who's recording all the stats. And sometimes they don't see the same number, and we have to figure it out on the fly because you want to get it right.
Yeah.
And then down from us are the radio announcers doing it for ESPN 990. So you can hear them as well, and they're talking and doing their thing. So it's a lot of noise going back and forth in the booth.
You must be good at multitasking.
Well, as a teacher and as a middle school teacher, you have to be good at multitasking.
I suppose that's true.
Because I do teach 7th grade.
So are they all quiet then when you get in there, Bob?
Well,
do they all leave?
When I started announcing in 77 to 90, I would be up in the press box. I would go up those steps at halftime and pregame and sit there. And, of course, while I'm announcing the band, there's all this commotion going on behind me. So that was kind of difficult to concentrate on announcing the band, and all this is going on behind me. And so in 1991, Chris Smith said, how about if we set you up on the field? And that's the best thing that's ever happened. I'm right there with the director. He can cue me when he wants me to go. He can stop me. If the band is taking a little bit longer, he can tell me to condense the announcement or to move it right along, keep going, and all sorts of things that is just really good. And so I announced from the 50-yard line since 1991.
How do I not know that? I'm a failure at it.
I try to stay incognito.
That's our goal.
I don't really,
blend in.
It's about the kids. It's about the show. Yeah. I'm just lending my voice. That's all. It's not about me. It's about them. And so I just kind of walk up to my spot, do it, kind of walk away. I just, dress in black a lot of times so I don't.
You wear a hat.
Yeah. And
you pull your fedora
not until
down.
It gets a little colder. Yeah. A lot of people say they can find me right away because they see the little white spot moving along the sidelines there. But, and then the timing, I have to time things out of course, Mr. Neal or any director gives me the cue when it's showtime, and I announce that, and then the drum major comes out and does his thing. When the band starts to do their turnarounds, which I always thought was real classy, those turnarounds they do to wind up. Mr. Billingsley called him his winding up his machine.
Oh,
because that's what it would be. Your turnarounds was winding up his machine, and but I have to fit in the names of all the directors, the students, and whatever. I have so many beats between that and when they roll off to Tiger Rag, fanfare and Tiger Rag. I have to get all these names in. Like, for many years, Mr. Unferdorfer was the assistant, and I have Unferdorfer, 4 more syllables, and then we have Jen Smith-Heisler, and we get all these names with all these syllables in them, and I'm like, okay, I have to time that all out, so I have to adjust. Like, normally, after I get done with the names, I can say, and ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 edition of the Massillon Tigers Swing Band. But this past year, I had to cut it back to, we are the Tiger Swing Band of Massillon. Half the syllables.
Wow.
Because there's too many names. We had a student teacher. And so it's like you can only get so many syllables in before it's time for fanfares. Yeah. So there's a lot of adjustment there. But I practice with the band every Friday afternoon. And then it's showtime.
Lots of logistics there that people aren't aware of.
Yeah.
Because you make it just sound so smooth and make it look easy.
Thank you.
Now, see, nobody really told like a funny story. Isn't there anything, really... David, you're turning red.
Well, I have red hair. I always turn red.
He blushes easily. There's nothing where, somebody fell off the ladder and landed on you or...
I mean, not really. I mean, once in a while I do really mangle... I'll mangle a word, like instead of feature twirler, a couple of times said feature twirler, But you just let it go.
Okay,
you just let it go. You don't correct it.
Just keep going.
And a lot of times the people, the audience, their mind hears the correct word.
Right.
And they don't even catch that you screwed it up,
Yeah, you're right.
So, but there's some mashing of the words, and you just keep on going. And the things that, you just sometimes things just happen, like most of the time the band does well, and sometimes they lay an egg, and you just keep excited and
keep going.
Yeah, and mentally you go, okay, there's another song yet. They can make up for that.
He'll probably cross that one off his list.
Yeah, we won't repeat that one. But it's it's usually a pretty good machine, by the time well-oiled, they know what they're doing. The fact that we do a different halftime show every home game is unheard of anymore. Nobody does that.
Oh, man.
Most bands have their A show, their B show, and their homecoming show. And they will do 3 shows. That's most bands anywhere around. But we do, if we have 6 home games, if we have 7 home games, a couple of years ago we had 9 home games. There will be a new halftime show at Massillon, as long as they can do it.
Sure, yeah. Well, it sounds like everything goes really well because you guys are so professional, and I know everybody appreciates listening to you and, having your insight and your, what if we didn't have announcers? What if...
Try.
I mean... or what if we had, like you say, some that are not as professional or not as...
Will you try? I remember it was one game last year or the year before. The roster we got had the wrong team logo. I couldn't remember if they were Knights or Raiders. So, the first half I was calling them one thing. Oh. And then they called up to the booth and they were like, no, they're actually this. So I was like, all right, well, second half I'm calling them this. But they had the wrong logo on their sheet
on their thing,
on their
that
roster,
they
their
sent
official.
you.
Yeah, so that was one that kind of stuff happens. But as Bob said, you just kind of roll with it. I've had a couple Samoan names for one team.
Oh, that'd probably be very difficult.
And I think I got it right maybe once out of the 4 times I had to call his name, even though I had the pronunciation, because just to say it quickly. And so, like he said, you just kind of go through it. And I guess the best compliment I got was from my friend Max Julian. if he listens to this, he's doing a great job with the MISA youth golf team. He's helped organizing that and run that for Massillon.
Well, now he's going to have to listen to it because
So-
you're going to send him a link to it.
So shout out to him. Great work he's doing there. But he said, I don't even realize you're up there anymore. And I said, well, that's good because that's my goal.
Oh.
I want to just blend in, like Bob said, and just be part of it. And I just want to be part of the show. You don't pick me out or realize I'm there.
It's just the voice from above telling you what's going on
That's
and
it.
announcing everything. Yeah, that is a nice compliment. Very good.
Yep.
Oh.
The greatest show in high school football. And a lot of people think that's the band. And it kind of drives me nuts because I keep correcting them. The greatest show in high school football is the entire thing. It's not the band. We're just part of it. It's Lincoln Way with the flags out on Friday night. It's
You're
the
right.
stadium itself. It's that huge scoreboard we have, video scoreboard. It's the cheerleaders. It's the band. It's the team winning, coming out. It's the entire experience. All together is the greatest show in high school football. And David and I we just want to blend in as part of the furniture,
Your cogs.
We're just
and the-
part of the
Yep.
we just do our part to blend in to make it, the greatest show.
Well, you guys are very humble, and I certainly appreciate you being here today and sharing with us. Anything in closing?
I can't think of, most of the funny things I can think of really are funny to me, but maybe not to others. Things happen, Yeah, have those band trips and whatnot. The only thing I can really think of is 40 years ago, we went to St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City.
Oh, my.
Played before 1 million onlookers. And I'm thinking of this because we were just talking about this a couple of weeks ago, how the band was at St. Patrick's, and there was a little blip on the alumni Facebook page.
Oh, uh-huh.
But in the elevator, I'm in with the band director, Rick Tissot, and we're in New York City. We're in Times Square. And a very dressed up lady, shall we say, entered in the elevator and started calling me by name.
Oh.
And asking me what I was doing, if I was available. And I'm petrified because she knows my name. And finally I just said, how do you know who I am? And she pointed to my name tag.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm just petrified going, who is this? And how does she know who I am?
How embarrassing.
So, yeah, that'll work.
But yeah, when you're wearing your name tag, it's,
Yes.
you forget you're wearing it.
And the only other thing, I meant to say this when we were talking about George Bird.
Uh-huh.
What is the most watched thing on American television?
Well, probably the thing.
What is the
that-
highest rating of American television?
The thing that is copyrighted and we're not supposed to say, and it starts with an S. Super.
We can't say that?
I thought it was copyrighted.
But
The
No,
Super
if
Bowl?
you're-
Okay, they're going to
yeah.
get me now. I said it.
Sorry. But yes, the halftime of the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl game itself carries a high rating, but they have marked where it bounces up even higher. People will tune in just for the halftime of the Super Bowl game.
Sure, okay.
Halftime of the Super Bowl. Entertainment. And where did that start? 1938, right here, Massillon, Ohio. The halftime of a football game as entertainment.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, David Stuck and Bob Wenzel, for being here. Hope everybody has a great season next season.
I'm sure we will.
You're going to get me. Yeah, it's only April 2nd. Now I'm going to get all excited.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Laura the Library Lady podcast. Be sure to check out the rest of the episodes on the Massillon Public Library's YouTube channel. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many other podcast platforms.